Spring is right around the corner, and Joe Biden's breaking out his garden shears. The president formally unveiled his new budget proposal this week, aiming to cut the federal deficit by a projected $3 trillion over the next decade, in part through a new 25% tax on billionaires. Other provisions of the plan: the corporate tax rate would increase from 21% to 28%. There's an increase in capital gains taxes, along with an end to the carried interest loophole, tax hikes for oil and gas companies, and a curtailing of COVID-related spending. Now, to be clear, no one in the White House thinks the Republican-controlled House will actually adopt President Biden's budget in its current form. There'll be plenty of wrangling and negotiation in the weeks to come. So why does it matter? Well, the budget proposal is a sign of the president's priorities, who he wants to help and what he wants to accomplish with the rest of his term. In effect, it's an opening pitch for his reelection bid and a challenge to House Republicans who appear to have no plan of their own. Speaker Kevin McCarthy has promised to balance the budget in the next decade, but here's his problem. He's also promised not to raise taxes and not to cut Social Security, Medicare, or defense spending. Effectively, there's little that he can do. The math just doesn't add up. So it seems Republicans are stuck between a rock and a hard place. Joining me now is Democratic Congressman Sean Casten of Illinois. He's the co-chair of the Congressional Sustainable Investment Caucus. Congressman Casten, thank you for joining me. Now, as I mentioned, you're the co-chair of the Congressional Sustainable Investment Caucus, and you're a numbers guy. So what do you make of Biden's budget proposal? What are the priorities that he's signaling to voters with this budget proposal?
I think you characterized it very well, Julian. Thanks for having me here. It's a very responsible budget. It addresses the things that everybody in Washington says we are very concerned about. You know, the solvency of Medicare and Social Security, making sure that no one who is earning less than $400,000 pays has an increase in their taxes. Doubling down on what we're doing on climate change, cutting child poverty by extending the child tax credits. None of us are under any illusions that the Republican leadership is going to bring this up. I think as all of us who watched or were present on the floor for the swearing in of McCarthy know, he did not get his job because of his leadership skills, to put it mildly. And so now we're sitting here trying to figure out, can the House Republican leadership even manage to avert a default on our debt, and restore the debt ceiling, much less get a budget done. I think we would all love to be surprised, but seeing essentially the ransom list from the Freedom Caucus that came out, I guess yesterday, it's not clear that McCarthy has the ability to steer his team through. Now, he can do it with Democrats. He can probably do it with some fulcrum of reasonable Republicans as well, but I think expectations are pretty low that he's going to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we know this budget proposal is, in effect, a wish list. As you acknowledged, others acknowledged, GOP lawmakers are never going to let it pass in its current form since they control the House. Like, that's nothing new, right, with the dynamic that we have, the political dynamic. But do Dems have the upper hand here? How do you see this battle playing out over the coming weeks?
What's tragic is that we're going to view this through a political lens because, we're in a political job, I suppose. But this budget is actually a lot like it's building on the successes. I mean, if we were not talking about this in a partisan sense, we'd be talking about the fact that, we've seen record job growth. We have seen for the first time in 30, 40 years, finally some significant wage inflation. For years, workers' wages didn't keep up with inflation, and now we're starting to close that gap. We're creating jobs in this country faster than we're creating workers, and we have a workplace shortage. These are all good problems. These are problems that we started to fix in the last term. And yes, I suppose the Democrats look better than the Republicans in this moment because we're adults who are there to govern, not sitting there trying to, spend our time on, gotcha hearings saying that somehow, I don't know, learning about our history is bad, or allowing free markets to allocate capital is a bad thing, which is essentially what this whole anti-ESG movement is. And so, yes, I guess we look better because we're in the adults in the room, but there are real people who have real needs that we should be focused on. And I think for all of us who care about this job and care about this country, it is disappointing that the Republicans aren't taking it seriously.
You make a great point about the substance that behind these numbers, there are people's lives and how they're affected. And every time I hear the president talk about the child tax credit and that reducing child poverty in our country by half during the time that it was expanded, the meaningfulness of that. I do want to ask you about another political fight, because it's going to be a consequential one. We're wrapping up to a big debt ceiling battle. Paul Krugman wrote in the New York Times that this week that Republicans, quote, claim to believe that rising federal debt is a major crisis, but if they really believed that, they'd be willing to accept at least some pain, accept some policies they dislike, take on popular spending programs in the name of deficit reduction. Do you see any of that happening?
Look, what the Republicans know, but they don't like to admit, is that 25% of all the debt we have ever incurred as a country was born on Donald Trump's watch. And maybe I'm naive. I don't think they want to blow up the economy, but they believe they have a hostage and folks are going to flinch if they take the hostage. I sometimes regret that we get caught up in all this Washington speak. Debt ceiling is not a term that people understand. But, for your viewers, imagine that you got a job, you got a salary, you went to college, you took out some student debt, you bought a mortgage, and then you started calling up your student loan servicer and your mortgage company and said, I've decided I'm not going to pay. What do you think would happen? That is essentially what the debt fight is. We have chosen through various Congresses to set taxes and income at certain levels, to take on various expenses, to provide social services. And by the way, if you haven't noticed, global markets kind of like investing in the U.S. We are still a very attractive place for countries around the world to put their money. And we're able to do that. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be concerned about our debt, but to decide not to pay is to completely destroy the economy. You ain't seen nothing. Silicon Valley Bank, that's a fart in the whirlwind of what's coming if we start defaulting on our debt and raising interest rates and seeing mortgages go up. And I hope that calmer heads will prevail. But, the Freedom Caucus demands, one of the things they suggest is their conditions for getting this all done is they want to, number one, defund the police. They call it the IRS, but the IRS is a law enforcement agency. They want to defund the IRS, which would cost us a ton of money because then rich people won't pay taxes. Then they want to impose work requirements on welfare. So rich people don't have to pay money, but poor people have to work in order to get support from the government. And they want to take back all the climate provisions from the IRA. That's how you destroy the economy. That's how you build it.
Congressman Sean Casten of Illinois, thank you.